So you found the person of your dreams and settled down for a life of wedded bliss. Now for where things get really interesting. If you thought the wedding was bad, by Erma Bombeck. Read by Karl. Next to hot chicken soup, a tattoo of an anchor on your chest, and penicillin, I consider a honeymoon one of the most overrated events in the world. It's one of those awkward times when you know everyone else has had a better time than you did, but you're too proud to admit it. A honeymoon hall of fame is being established at a resort hotel in the Poconos. According to Publicity, a heart-shaped alcove will feature photos, mementos, and memorabilia of famed loving couples of history and fiction. To date, they've included a recording of the Duke of Windsor's history-making Declaration of Love, in which he renounced the British throne, early cartoons of Blondie and Dagwood, and film clips of Elizabeth Taylor's weddings. It boggles the mind to imagine how they're going to determine who will enter the Honeymoon Hall of Fame and for what reasons, but here are a few nominations. Ruth and Walter, who enjoyed the shortest honeymoon in history. Ruth shot Walter on the leg at the reception for fooling around with the maid of honor. Sue and Ted for the most unique honeymoon in history. While Sue swam, danced, played tennis, and shopped, Ted ice fished, skied, played cards, and drank with the boys. While separate honeymoons to work for everyone, it worked for Sue and Ted. Laura and Stuart, the couple who were the greatest sports in their honeymoon. Right after the wedding, Laura discovered Stuart was out on bail for armed robbery, was coming down with 3-day measles, was already married, had a son who set fires, and had taken out $75,000 worth of life insurance for her at the reception. But what the heck, as Laura explained, honeymoons are always a time of adjustment. There are a lot of theories as to why marriages aren't lasting these days. The original premise was so simple. All you had to do was promise to love and to cherish from this day forward for better or worse, and you asked yourself, how bad could it get? Bad never reaches it to the big stuff. There's always the little things that do a marriage in. For example, a woman could walk through the Louvre Museum in Paris and see 5,000 breathtaking paintings on the wall. A man could walk through the Louvre Museum in Paris and see 5,000 nails on the wall. That is the inherent difference. I don't know what there is about a nail in the wall that makes strong, virile men cry. First week aware of this phenomenon was a week after my husband and I were married. I passed him in the kitchen one day while carrying a small nail and hammer. "What are you doing with that nail and hammer?" he asked, beginning to pale. "I'm going to hang up a towel rack," I said. He could not have looked more shocked if I had said I was going to drive a wooden peg into the heart of a vampire. "Do you have to drag that spike into the wall to do it?" "No," I said, resting on the sink. "I could prop the towel rack up on a corner. I could hang it around my waist from a rope, or I could do away with it altogether and keep a furry dog around the sink to dry my hands on." "What is it about women they cannot stand to see a smooth, bare wall?" he grumbled. What is it there about men that they cannot stand to have the necessities of life hung from a wall?" "What necessity?" he asked. "Silly, you don't need that mirror in the hallway." "You said that about the light switches." His eyes narrowed, and I had a feeling he was going to zap me with this big point. "Do you realize," he asked softly, "there's not one single wall in this house where we can show a home movie?" "Radio City Music Hall only has one," I retorted. And so, the nail versus the bare wall has gone on for years at our house. He wouldn't hang a calendar over my desk because in 12 months the nail would become obsolete. He wouldn't hang the children's baby pictures because in 2 years they'd grow teeth and no one would recognize them. He wouldn't let me put a hook in the bathroom so I wouldn't have to hold my robe while I showered. He wouldn't let me hang a kitchen clock anywhere but on a wall stud, which happened to be located behind the refrigerator. Sometimes you have to wait for revenge. Yesterday I reported he ran over a nail with his car. There's an obvious question here, but I wouldn't insult anyone's intelligence by explaining it. To love and to cherish from this day forward. Why doesn't anyone think to ask? Snoring could be a real threat to a marriage, especially if it's snore that blows lampshades off the base, pictures off the wall, and makes farm animals restless as far as 50 miles away. The loudest snore, according to the Guinness World Book of Records, was measured at 69 decibels at St. Mary's Hospital in London. Until last night. That's when my husband broke the record by sustaining his breathing at a rousing 72 decibels. 72 decibels, for the innocents, is equivalent to having a cannon go off on the seat next to you in the Astrodome. Hey, Cyrano, I yelled. Wake up, you're doing it again. Doing what? Snoring. You woke me up to tell me that? I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. I do not snore. I know it if I did. That's the same logic used by the man who said, if I had amnesia, I would have remembered it. What did it sound like? Like the Goodyear blimp with a slow leak. Well, what did you expect? A concert? When people tried what Lucille Farnsworth tried when her husband snoring drove her crazy. What's that? He asked sleepily. She just put a pillow over his face. Good Lord, woman, that would cause a man to stop breathing altogether. Well, she hasn't worked all the bugs out yet, but she's onto something. Why don't you just roll me over on my side? I did, and you hit me. And so it went all through the night. Frankly, I'm sick of all the therapist remedies that never seem to work, like self-hypnosis, earplugs, and rolling the snorer off his back. These are the only remedies that bear consideration. Change beds. Get the snorer out of his own bed into a strange one, preferably with another state. Prolonging sleep. This one works as well as any I've tried. Just as you were both climbing into bed, get every nerve in his body on the word by offhandedly mentioning, the IRS called you today. They'll call back tomorrow. Some experts believe you have to get to the root of a husband's reasons for snoring. They suggest that the person snores because he is troubled, his dentures don't fit properly, he indulges in excessive smoking or drinking, has swollen tonsils, or suffers from old age. Don't you believe any of it? A man snores for one reason alone, to annoy his wife. And if that doesn't do it, it results in some other ploy to drive her crazy. The sorry I'm late syndrome. There are no records to prove it, mind you, but I have every reason to believe my husband was an 11th month baby. He's been running 2 months late ever since. Through marriage, and bad association, I've become a member of the great body of tardy Americans who grope their way down theater aisles in the dark, arrive at parties in time to drink their cocktails with their dessert, and celebrate Christmas on December 26th. Frankly, I don't know how a nice punctual girl like me got stuck with a man who needs not a watch, but a calendar and a keeper. Would it shock anyone to know I have never seen a bride walk down the aisle? I've never seen a choir or a graduate in a processional. I've never seen the victim of a mystery before he was murdered. I've never seen a parking lot jammed with people. Never seen the first race of a daily double or a football team in clean uniforms. Well, the other night I had it out with my husband. Look, I'm in the prime time of my life, and I've never heard the first 30 seconds of the minute waltz. Doesn't that tell you something? What are you trying to say? I'm trying to say that once before I die, I would like to see a church with empty seats. We've been told this before, he sighed. Sitting around before an event begins is a complete waste of time, and you could be spending it sleeping, reading, and working. Don't forget driving around the block looking for a parking place. I don't understand you at all, he continued. Don't you get so curious as to what they put in the first acts? Aren't you all just a little bit envious of people who don't have to jump onto moving trains? Are you tired of sitting down to a 44-minute egg each morning? I set up my alarm clock every night. What do you want from me? I've seen you when you've set your alarm clock. When you want to get up at 6:30, you set it for 5:30. Then you reset it for 6, and when it goes off, you hit it again and shout, haha, it was only kidding, I've got another half hour. You reset it for 6:30, at which time you throw your body on it and say, I don't need you, I don't need anybody. Then you go back to sleep. I just happen to believe there's no virtue in being early. What time is it? It's 8 o'clock. Supposed to be at work at 8. Yes, lucky I've got 20 minutes to spare. Never in my life will I hear the Star-Spangled Banner being played. I've also had to suggest to a man who does not know how to live in a world geared to leisure. It's a common problem. A lot of women are married to workaholics, and the trick is to get them to take 2 weeks off a year and just relax. Sound simple? I took my husband to the beach for 2 weeks, where he promptly spread out a large beach towel, opened his briefcase, and began to balance the checkbook. I took him to a fancy hotel in a big city where he spent the entire week tinkering with the TV set, trying to get the snow out of the picture. Once I even took him to a nightclub where scantily clad girls danced out of key. After one came over and propped herself ceremoniously on his knee and tickled his chin, he turned to me and said, We really should have the fire insurance on our house updated. A friend of mine suggested I take him camping. There's nothing like the wilderness to make a man relax and bring him back to nature. What did she know? After 3 days in the wilderness, he had rotated the tires, mended 3 water mattresses, built a bridge, filled 8 snow control barrels with cinders, and devised a sophisticated system to descend everyone before they entered the tent. He went to the library to check on how the river got its name, wrote a letter to the editor of the local paper, read the lantern words out loud to all of us. He alphabetized my staple goods, painted the word gas on the gas cans, hung our meat from a tree to make it inaccessible to bears and humans. Raccoons eventually ate it. After I experienced it, I told him, "Face it, monkey, we are incompatible." "Why do you say that?" he asked. "I'm a fun-loving, irrepressible, and impetuous Zelda, and you are a proper, restrained, put your underwear on a hanger, Dr. Zhivago." "I have a good time," he said soberly. "You know I'm the only woman in the world to wake up on New Year's Day with nothing to regret from the night before? No gold wedgies scattered on the stairway, no party hats on the back of the commode, no taste in my mouth like a wet chenille tongue. Only the memories of Father Time doozing over a warm Gatorade. I've had more stimulating evenings picking out Tupperware." "That's not true," he said. "What did you last New Year's Eve?" From 7:30 to 8:30, I picked bubblegum out of the dog's whiskers. At 10:30, you fell asleep on the chair while I drank unflavored gelatin to strengthen my fingernails. At 10:45, I went to the fridge for a drink. The kids had drunk all the mix, and the neighbors had cleaned us out of ice cubes. I poured 2 glasses of warm Gatorade, returned to the living room, and kicked you in the foot. You jerked away and said, "Do you know that at midnight all horses age 1 year?" At 11:45, your snooze alarm went off. You kicked our fingers while Carmel Lombardo sang "Boo-hoo," flipped the torchlight off on and off twice, and shouted "Happy New Year." "I wish it could be like Dan and Wanda." "What's so good about Dan and Wanda?" he asked. "Wanda tells me that she and Dan have meaningful conversations." "Big deal," he yawned. "It is a big deal. Have we ever had one?" "I don't think so," he said. Finally, I said, "What is a meaningful conversation?" "You're kidding. You actually don't know?" "No, what is it?" "Well, it's a conversation with meaning, like an oil embargo or Paul Harvey." "Exactly. What about them? What about who?" "The oil embargo and Paul Harvey." "It doesn't have to be a conversation about the oil embargo and Paul Harvey," he explained patiently. "It could be discussion of anything in your daily schedule that is pertinent." "I shaved my legs yesterday." "That's not pertinent to anyone but you." "Not really. I was using your razor." For the paper more, your conversation will be more stimulating. "Okay, here's something meaningful. I read this yesterday that in Naples, that's in Italy, people were searching for a woman who tried to cut off a man's nose with a pair of scissors while he was sleeping. What do you think of that?" "That's unmeaningful." A few minutes later, I said, "Suppose it was the American embassy and the woman was a spy, and the nose, which showed secret documents about a oil embargo against Saudi Arabia and Paul Harvey, belonged to President Carter?" "Why don't we just go back to meaningless drivel?" he said. "Which reminds me," I said, "we had an article in the magazine where it said married couples are unable to respond to their differences and why they become frustrated. It's called the old 'I don't care except you' or 'I will if you want to' blues. You do that a lot, and I never know how you stand on things." "I didn't read the article," he said. "Well, as I recall, suggested the husband and wife spell out their feelings using the scale of 1 to 10. For example, if you say, 'Would you like to go to a movie?' instead of shrugging my shoulders and saying, 'Makes no difference,' I respond by saying, 'I'm 5 on attending a movie. Actually, I'm 8 on spending the picture, but I'm 3 on spending the money right now.' That makes sense. Let's try it. Who would you like for dinner?" "Farrah Fawcett Matrix." "Not who, clown. What?" "How will I know until I know what we're having?" "That's the point. Offer some suggestions." "Okay, liver's a big 10 with me. I hate liver. To me, liver is a -2 and you know it. How about meatloaf?" "Meatloaf with meat is a 6. Without meat, with a lot of bread, a 2. However, if you feel nice about it, I'll send one of the kids to the Golden Arches, which is emerging as a big 10. Would it hurt you to be a 9 about meatloaf just once?" I snapped. "You should talk. 27 years you haven't got off your 2 once when I've discussed having liver." "Lower your voice. We don't have to air our 2s and 3s to the neighbors. How about an omelet?" "Sounds like a firm 8 to me." "Good, we agree. We're all out of eggs, so you have to go to the store. The car is a 9. I'm having battery trouble. That averages out omelets to a 4. Okay, we're down to peanut butter. It's a definite 3, -1 for being cold. However, it's a +2 for nutrition, +4 for not being a leftover, and a -3 for being fattening. It comes out to a 5. What do you think? I don't care, said my husband. I was hoping you'd say that. There's a lot of talk about why marriages are failing, but how come so many succeed? Some women are too old for a paper route, too young for Social Security, too clumsy to steal, and too tired for an affair. Some are just bored of this world of marriage and don't know how to act in any different. For a woman who has any doubts about her status, just answer a few simple questions. When your husband's best friend leans close to the dance floor and whispers in her ear, "What are you doing the rest of your life?" And you whisper back, "Waiting for my washer repairman," you're married. When a tall, handsome man takes your hand and asks you to dance, and you answer, "I can't, my pantyhose are shifted with a slight movement they'll bind my knees together," you're married. When a Robert Redford lookalike invites you to have a cup of coffee after evening class and you order a hamburger with onions, you're married. When you're invited by the office single dude to join it for a weekend to bring a friend and you bring your husband, you're married. When a party rival asks, "Ever thought about leaving your husband?" and you answer, "Where?" you're married. No one talks about fidelity anymore. It's something you hope is still around, and in significant numbers. When the Coast Guard band strikes up Semper Fi and your husband says, "They're playing our songs. You want to dance?" You know you're married. The end.